Right, once again, very good morning to you, and thank you for choosing us here on the BTV News channel. So, Botswana Connects this morning start with just a relook at yesterday, which was the Day of the African Child. And this is a time to reflect on the Soweto Children's Uprising of 1976 in South Africa. During that time, thousands of South African students protested that the apartheid government was forcing them to use Afrikaans as their language of instruction. This is in what was then called the Bantu schools. So the uprising happened, and it resulted in the deaths of hundreds of students. And it is considered as a turning point in the struggle against apartheid, which now is history. So today, as an opportunity to the Day of the African Child, it's an opportunity to celebrate the realization of the rights of the African child, as the OAU then declared it. This is in line with the African Charter on the rights and welfare of the child. The purpose of the day today is also to raise awareness on challenges that children face. And one of the most pressing challenges facing African children today is lack of access to digital technology and what sort of exclusion that then translates to in their lives. Now, to discuss this further, I am joined in studio by Ms. Sally Kimangu, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Destination Imagination Africa. And with that, let me welcome you, Sally. Good morning. Welcome to Botswana Connects.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, so yesterday we commemorated the Day of the African Child. And for us here in Botswana, when part of the nation's reset agenda is digitalization, the theme was in line with our national priorities. So maybe let's start off with looking at today. What is the reality of access to internet, to technology of the African child?
Thank you, One. And yes, it's about time. This is a conversation that we're supposed to have long started having.
Okay.
And yes, as much as we beat ourselves so hard that there should be more progress, we have tried to make some strides. And looking at the entire continent and all the other underlying issues we have when we talk about infrastructure, and obviously with the pandemic coming and becoming a wake-up call on we need to do more, we've taken a lot of tremendous steps. And I would say thanks to a lot of stakeholders that have seen to it that accessibility of some of the digital assets that kids need to, we're getting there. More could be done, we could do better, but just starting with the case in point, our smartphone penetration in Africa, it's done very well. We are on 72%, where literally every household has access to a smartphone.
Okay.
When we look at internet, a lot of households has access to internet.
Okay.
Yes, we're still having some issues with affordability of that in some cases. And obviously I speak for marginalized communities where we're trying to put a lot of measures in place that that child is not left behind.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So then let's also then first maybe take it a step back and look at Destination Imagination, because you do a lot of work in ensuring that children are not left behind when it comes to literacy of these digital languages, tech languages.
Yes.
And I want to perhaps just give you the opportunity to tell us what it is that you actually do with these children.
Thank you. A very good question.
Yeah.
Now, we've seen the disconnect in, first let's go back to Africa is the second continent in the world that spends the biggest budget on education. It's always health, education. So as, and a case in point, you know it in Botswana, we spend our biggest, I think like this year, our second biggest budget is on education.
Yes.
And what we need to do is take a step back and look at why is it we're spending so much on education, yet we have the highest level of youth unemployed in Africa. So we are the youngest continent. We have a lot of youth roaming the streets of Africa with their degrees. School, we take kids to.
Yeah.
What they do with their education, it's something else we need to assess, and we need to address that. So this is what, it got to a point where we looked at what exactly are we training them? Should we sit back and look at the content, the curriculum? And that is where we looked for partners that were able to help us customize the content, the curriculum, and make it extremely learner-centered. And make sure it's experiential. Kids today want to do, they don't want lectures. You
Yeah.
lose them when you lecture them.
Yeah.
So we've come up with a program that is quite involving, and then we have stakeholders that ensure that we're able to go to marginalized communities.
Okay.
So we work with global economic development donors that give us funds. So you find us in the midst of Gumare, Shakawe,
Aha.
where you think this can't be done. And yes, it's not easy, but there's solar that can be used. We have tablets that we make sure they're charged. We have the community that is very supportive. So the chief who has internet access or electricity within that community,
Right.
we go there. We get the gadgets charged.
Okay.
And then obviously it's very important for us to expose them to the 21st century skills. So we're talking about coding, robotics, and most important, artificial intelligence and soft skills. Because
Okay.
that has contributed to our youth being unemployed.
Okay, because yes, for the United Nations, this is a lot of nations involved to have singled out this theme that the rights of a child
Yes.
in this digital environment. And yes, with 72%, as you mentioned, 72% of citizens of Africa having access to some level of digitalization, at
Yes.
least smartphones.
Yeah.
And then a population that you definitely don't want to leave behind is the children. So
Yes.
having defined what it is that you do, a child having access to the internet or technology, what does this mean to, how does this affect their life? Because we're thinking when you're talking being economically viable citizen
Yeah.
is when you are adult and working.
Yes, yeah.
But why are we concerned with having the children having access to the digital environment or being not left behind?
Thank you, One. You know, one of the things we need to get to appreciate and understand is there are a lot of ills associated with access to internet. But like anything else, any disruption that happens within our realities, within our communities, within our environment, within our world, we've got to be very selective and to be very careful on how we introduce that.
Right.
So we can't help it. We're living that era of internet. Our kids know how to access these gadgets. You put your smartphone on the table with a 1-year-old child, they know how to navigate without being told how to do it.
Right.
So what we need to look into is what measures can we put in place to make sure our kids, are they consuming the right content? Are the parents aware on the digital realities and the dangers that come with it? Our kids exposing themselves on, are they putting their names, their age? What about all these other cyberbullying that's going on online?
Right.
Are the kids, do they know? So for me, the most important thing is, can we create awareness? Can we have our children aware on, this is it, we're living at this era of internet, there's a lot of good for you to learn from it, but there has to be some security features.
Right.
We need to make sure that you're doing the right thing.
Right.
So it's that taking that responsibility and making sure from the parent to the teacher, to the community, be it church or wherever your child goes from there.
Yes.
They need to be aware. This is not just a gadget. And also trying to utilize them in a responsible way.
Right.
There's so much good you can do with a smartphone. But we still have so much underrated issues that go on and ultimately ruin our kids,
Okay.
causing depression and so many other social ills from those gadgets. Yeah.
So then our children, then we're saying our children have the right as children to be protected against this new advent which
Yeah.
is upon us.
Absolutely.
And that we can't
Yeah.
deny. As much as social ills happen in society, in the physical, social ills happen on the internet as well. I think that's what
Absolutely.
you're saying.
Yes.
All right. So as a country, you have operated a digital destination Imagination Africa has operated in Botswana generally.
Yeah.
And I suppose you have had interactions with policy level
Yes.
of where we are at the country. I know that the Maitlamo ICT strategy was put in
Yes.
place about
Yeah.
a decade or two
Yeah.
ago. So what would your reality be interacting and working with the policy framework for our readiness for digital transformation?
It is so much to do with us taking up that responsibility. Right now we have the laptops being distributed. We have servers being put in place. And we have to ensure that security features are there, which starts with the teachers getting trained, from that policy level, all the key stakeholders getting to know. So you find when the child is now given access to that laptop, when they know what to do, we're not risking them getting onto sites they don't need to get to. And since they're predators online, they know what to do when those predators come.
Yeah.
They know where to put a stop. They know where to switch it off. Yeah. Okay. It is so much to do with educating children. This is where we insist on, if we're going to encourage our kids to get on digital devices, it's critical that we make sure we expose them to cyber security. It's a lesson that should be covered. It actually should be compulsory.
What are the challenges today as you are seeing the reality of it, the reality of this violation of children on the digital space?
Currently, there's a lot going on, especially when I mention platforms like ChatGPT, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Yes.
It's disrupted the market. And as we talk of when the big boys felt like this is risky, can we switch it off? How are we going to switch off a child who is using it from the garage? And we have a lot of opportunities that have been created, jobs, people are making apps, and job losses as well at the same time. So again and again, it's awareness, campaign. Let's educate our children. Let them get to know. This is an amazing resource, but it can make or break you. Depends on how you use it. Yeah.
So that the reality then you would say, is it something that we have to be worried or concerned that, yes,
I don't want to sound like a prophet of doom, but it's something we need to be worried about. We need to be very, very concerned about.
Yeah.
And it's not just spreading fear, but it's concern from what measures do we need to put in place.
Yes.
I see it as I interact with kids. We have a coding center that kids come on Saturday, and I like picking their brains and their views. Are you using ChatGPT? What is your school saying about it? Are you copying your homework, or are you using it in a responsible way? So you find we have ethical kids that go like, I use it for research, but I can't allow you to give me direct answers. Then obviously we have another child who doesn't want to put in the hard work and just copies everything. So obviously issues of plagiarism. And besides looking at that, what kind of a society are we going to have if kids can't carry on and continue learning how to use their brain?
Yeah, because that way then the other harm is that the children might not be learning in the advent of the digital space, but copying.
Absolutely.
From the digital exposure.
Yeah. And that is even mild. But you've had cases of like somebody in Poland killed himself from using those tools, got so obsessed and decided I'm supposed to be here solving global warming issues, and you're making these so many tools, and now you become a friend too. And obviously with all the mental issues we're going through in the world, and kids and predators, this is a campaign that should start now. Just creating that awareness, educate children. Switching off won't work. There's actually no switching off. The genie is out of the bottle. The best we can do is educate our children.
But then educate our children, but we still are sitting as the adults with the responsibility of guiding and parenting children. What do you see as possible approaches or strategies for us to embrace the digital transformation, this digital space well, and still be functional as parents guiding children, or as a nation guiding its children?
I will still go back to the policy, starting from the policy makers, and ensuring that systems are put in place. And right away, putting this in our curriculum. If it becomes a subject, a lesson that we're all learning in class, we're learning AI, we're learning cybersecurity, we're learning coding, robotics. We don't learn this skill just for us to end up in those careers. We literally learn them because at some point in life, we'll need to utilize those skills. It's literally like right now, how we feel about when you go for a job interview, the last thing you're going to say is, I don't know how to drive, or I don't know how to speak English. That is where tech is. You don't want to have people that can't just access digital platforms, respond to emails, use project management systems. Literally small things, but they mean so much from the day-to-day life we're living. So if we can step back and make sure from the curriculum developers, this is it. This is not something that's going to come. This is where we are. This is the reality. We're living it. And then obviously not leaving the entire responsibility to the government. You and I, we're community people. Wherever we go to church, speak about it, educate children. From our homes, It doesn't matter how illiterate we can be, but we've heard of that thing. Make sure, encourage your kids. Let's make sure that we have, like right now with the disruption of STEAM clubs in the villages or innovation hubs in the villages.
Right.
Let's make sure that every school has a teacher who is concerned with that, who is molding children, who is mentoring on that, and who is making sure that there's a library. And this library, these laptops are not just there as part of the furniture. Kids are coming and using them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned quite clearly what the importance or the pertinence of paying attention to children's rights in the digital space are when we're talking along the side of cybersecurity and the dangers that children might be exposed to. I want you also to speak about other elements, including coding and robotics. If we're thinking that children we need to make a consideration of children when we're talking that type of language. I want you to help us understand the importance of that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now you're getting back home.
And artificial intelligence. Coding, robotics, artificial intelligence, all the language that is digital space today. Yes.
You know, this is a little bit, we are quite behind as Africa, let me put it that way. But then it's not too late. We're catching up.
Right.
And I'm looking at the context of so many African countries and what they've been able to do.
Okay.
Places like South Africa, it's right now part of the curriculum. Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, we're getting there. Now, the introduction of these programs, we're not focusing on assuming that our kids have to do coding, robotics, AI because they're going to be programmers or because they have to work in that space. We're looking at what they learn, how we expose them, how we place them in line with 21st century skills.
Right.
When we talk about shortages of jobs, it's not really shortage of jobs, it's shortage of workers. We just don't have a skilled workforce to fit in that space.
Where the world is today.
Where the world is today. It doesn't matter, you're in China, you're in Singapore, you're wherever, the demand for programmers is extremely high. And besides us preparing our kids to get into that space, programming and coding and robotics exposes you and changes your thinking. When we talk about the packaging of that and soft skills, it's literally showing you how to be a problem solver. And we can have the world as a better place if we can have more problem solvers.
Right.
There are kids who are literally not interested in coding and robotics, but now it's a language just like English.
Yeah.
Just get some basics in it.
Yeah.
AI, just get something. You don't have to get to Python and advanced programming languages. But at some point in life, you'll want to use these tools.
Right.
You will have to be a digital citizen who is very much aware with the realities of the world you live in.
Right.
But then again, job opportunities, it's an opportunity galore. There are so many job opportunities in that space of cybersecurity. Like right now with the disruption of AI, there's a huge shortage because every day something is getting bugged, somebody's trying to hack the system.
Yes.
And obviously as that happens, we need more skilled people in that space.
Okay.
Programming as well.
And when we're talking about the rights of our children have the right to have a future in this economy.
Yeah.
And decades and decades ago, when the future was, your orthodox jobs, be a teacher, a policeman, and a nurse.
Yes.
Children then, perhaps my generation, were exposed to those professionals and could aspire.
Yes.
To be such professionals.
Yes.
And where Botswana is trying to transition to a high-income economy by 2036 and so on and so forth. That, to me, it looks like there's going to have to be a lot of solutions in place,
yes,
especially if we're
yes,
existing
yeah,
in a digital space. And I want you to speak to that future for those children and solutions for the future of Botswana.
I love this. And what I love so much about it is we're a little bit slow,
Yeah.
which is a fact. We still don't have a lot of the groundwork that's supposed to be done yet ready.
Okay.
But then our kids are very exposed. So our kids keep on introducing even what we don't know to us. I think about within our space and what we do, we were not so focused on 3D printing. This was introduced by youth. and we now have a 3D printing program that we run.
Okay.
Space exploration. I knew nothing because as you and I, our era, it was finish university, go become a teacher, do marketing, do something. That was our worldview. But right now with the whole disruption of the internet, you find kids growing up saying, I want to be a content creator. And they know there's a lot of money in that space.
Right.
I want to get into cybersecurity, things that us as parents, now we have mechatronics.
Yeah.
I think this could be the third year BIUST is doing mechatronics.
And is that right as a child to be guided?
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
that? Yes.
So what we need to do is, can we listen to our children?
Okay.
And can we make these courses available and accessible to them? Okay. Can we stop underestimating the intelligence?
Okay.
Gone are the days when kids, we could say something to our mummies and it's straight up shush. We were not allowed to respond. We were not allowed to have a debate. Now it's gotten to a point what we do with our kids, we don't beat, we have a dialogue.
Right.
We listen to them. They're exposed, they're learning, they're seeing these things. Let's have that, let's listen to them, and let's put the proper systems in place. Or else, the bus is moving, and we're going to miss out.
Okay. You, Destination Imagination does work even in non-urban areas of Botswana and areas that are sometimes considered remote.
Yes.
And what is the reality there in terms of the children being brought up to speed with the digital environment that the entire country is moving towards?
Thank you, One. A huge difference, I have to say that, which honestly breaks my heart. That makes me want to work and work again within those marginalized communities, as we call them. And obviously, Botswana, the digital divide is not so huge. But we have other countries. I work a lot in Tanzania, in Zanzibar, in Ghana, in Nigeria. It's massive. Even in South Africa, what you get from Cape Town, the city, and Khayelitsha, it's extremely different. Or Soweto and Sandton. You would actually go like, this is within 20-kilometer radius, and these kids think very differently.
Right.
However, what is extremely consoling is the child in the village is very keen to learn and extremely innovative.
Right.
Because of the realities they live within every day, they have to think outside the box for literally everything they
solutions.
do.
Yeah.
These are the kids that when you're worried about, oh, we have no matches, how do we make fire? They figure out. I'll run to the neighbor, I'll get it. We're still going to do something. They're extremely innovative. Yeah. And we compare, we look at the projects we come up with, because we work so much in the area of innovation. Kids have to do a project within our training. So when we look at the outcome, what we get, even from a private school and a government school, it's a lot of difference.
Okay.
The huge difference is this child in the village is very, very innovative and resilient and has a can-do attitude. They don't have like, this is impossible.
Okay.
No. They figure out, they get it done.
Okay.
The child in the city, no. Mama refused to give me her iPad, so I couldn't do my work.
Okay.
Internet was not working pretty well. And that's them. That's the world they know. They are obviously pretty much exposed. When you talk about any topic, they know.
Right.
The child in the village is a little bit struggling. When you talk about very advanced technology and things that you want, like last time we were doing virtual reality, and kids in the city have actually interacted with drones, with VR sets, with 3D printing. They have an idea what you're talking about.
Right.
The child in the village, they're green. This is the first time, but I want to learn.
Yeah.
And they end up beating the child in the city.
Okay.
So there's hope.
Right. Right. Well, the reality is there's a difference,
Yes.
and that even translates into a difference of the mindset, their outlook,
Yes.
the way they actually even approach problems and
Yes.
solutions,
Yeah.
which is very interesting. And then how do we synergize this in your suggestion?
What do we do? We try. Very good question, because it's a mammoth task. So we run very engaging competitions, which makes the child in the city starting to respect the child in the village. And what is amazing about kids, they gel. They work very well. Our competitions, first we make sure there's a lot of interactions. So we do sometimes some virtual sessions with them. Sometimes it's challenge with the village. What is there? We'll have to make sure there's a projector for kids to go and access that.
Right.
And then sometimes we make sure that there's a boot camp where you bring the two together. It's not very easy, but it gets done.
Right.
Yeah. Kids are they just loving their innocence.
Right.
Yeah. They're not looking at the color of your shoe or how expensive it is. No, they're just kids. They're innocent.
Right.
And they also get to sort of appreciate the thinking from this child from marginalized communities.
Okay. All right. It does feel when you're explaining it that all hope's not lost.
No.
We'll get there. And definitely our future being the children will definitely get there and take us there. So then when we're looking at the rights of a child in the digital space, which is the theme for this year's Day of the African Child, how much disparity is there between the African child and the global child? You know, because this is stemming from the Day of the African Child. We've talked a lot about Botswana, but let's take it to Africa.
So are you talking about comparing Africa and the global south, or yes, like a child in Canada, in America, and whatever?
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Because it's a global world. At some point, they're going to have to exist with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, the reality is things change up there. When we're still down here, we've just finished our global competitions, which we first entered the first on 2021. We had a team from a government school in Botswana. I just don't like mentioning the school because it does
That's
well
fine.
in
All
everything.
Right. Okay. Congratulations to them.
You know, it's always, yeah, it has to be that school. So this school, the competition was with 46 teams from 46 countries. Japan, Singapore, China. I think 22 states or something like that were there. Like the first world. This was the only team representing Africa.
Okay.
They became number 3.
Wow. In the world.
In the world.
Wow.
Yet, this was the first time we were introducing them to coding, robotics, AI, cybersecurity, 3D, the works.
Right.
They did a challenge that was extremely good. Sometimes I feel like we underestimate ourselves. But then again, without getting a little political, if you look at a lot of innovation that has happened in the world, it comes from Africa. It's just brain drain that the guys who are coming up with solutions in Harvard or wherever, it's still an African gene. I'm not going to say we are any special or different, but there's a lot of talent here.
Yeah.
And as much as we might look at digital divide like we so left behind, no.
Okay.
I've visited and interacted with other countries. The time we did a program in Germany, and I was so like in shock.
Okay.
Looking at the government schools, where they are at and what they're doing. Yes, we have some that are pretty much advanced. You talk about Singapore, Japan, and some places in US.
Yeah.
I have to add some places, it's not every state.
So I'm going to have to close it off. Unfortunately, this is all the time that we have, but I want to close it off with a word from you to myself, the citizen of Botswana, the parent of Botswana, about the rights of my child in the digital space. What would your closing the word then be?
It's strongly to advise the parent. This is us. This is our world. This is our community. These are our children. And let's not leave everything to the government and carry on complaining you didn't put measures in place. What can we do? Can we try to make sure we have that awareness and we are supporting our children? Let's still go back to the strong phrase of, it takes a village to raise a child.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Sally, for sharing with us this morning, and have a good day.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
This is well, conversations are leading from the commemoration of the Day of the African Child, which was yesterday, June 16. And of course, the theme being the rights of a child in the digital environment. And we're looking at the realities of that, the effects of that, maybe the future of that, and our responsibilities in that as a nation.